Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada and sponsored by Environics Analytics. Environics Analytics helps companies in the retail, CPG, and cannabis industry turn data and analytics into insight, strategy, and results. EA produces Cannabis Insights, the market-leading resource of neighborhood-level insights for the cannabis industry. I thought this episode would be a great capstone to 2019 and also a great leading indicator of better and better days for the retail cannabis industry in Canada in 2020 and beyond. Recorded live backstage at the Lift & Co. Canadian Cannabis Awards in Toronto, I interview finalists, winners, and industry advocates, chat about all things retail cannabis. First up, Darren Bondar, President and CEO of Inner Spirit Holdings, which we would experience as Spiritleaf, one of the biggest retail chains with 42 retail cannabis stores and 10 more in the pipeline. We talk about the importance of awards to this young industry and the path ahead for Spiritleaf. Darren was a finalist in the Entrepreneur of the Year category. Next, Spiritleaf Budtender Mona Pinette, Lift & Co. nominee for Budtender of the Year. Mona won Spiritleaf's Cannabis Concierge of the Year award. At Spiritleaf, she is manager of the Chinook location. We talk about her personal journey in the profession and what it takes to be a great budtender on the front lines. Next, Mimi Lam and Drummond Monroe, founders of Superette, stop by just after taking home the hardware for Startup of the Year, Women in Weed, Trailblazer, and Top Retail Store Single Location, Ottawa, as well as being finalists in the Employer of the Year and Entrepreneur of the Year categories. We talk briefly about what it takes to get a single brand concept developed and off the ground and the path ahead for Superette. Lastly, I connect with Kelly Green from Kelly's Green Lounge in Orono, Ontario. We talk about what it's like to be both a fellow podcaster, Kelly's Green Lounge, and retail entrepreneur. But first, let's jump into my interview with Darren from Spiritleaf. Darren, welcome back to the Voice of Retail, your second appearance here.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It feels like it was just a few months ago.
We're here at the Lift & Co. Awards. You're up for Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing. So I wanted to just, as an entrepreneur, a couple of questions. First of all, how important are awards like this in the industry, and particularly in the cannabis industry?
Well, I think they're really important. I mean, it provides legitimacy to the entire industry, and there's some amazing companies built in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. So to be able to recognize the accomplishments of the staff and the entrepreneurs and the drivers behind the legalized industry, I think is super important. Mm. And Lyft has certainly done a great job in in helping push that envelope forward.
Yeah, bringing people to. I mean, standing out there looks fantastic. I mean, it really looks. It's really. To be proud, right? It's a great industry, and everyone's having a good time.
We're at the York Hotel, and it's a gala, and I think that's exactly, I think that's exactly what the industry needs to, as I say, to recognize all these great accomplishments.
Fantastic. All right, so tips for being an entrepreneur. You're up for this entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Great, to be nominated, win, lose or draw. It's a fantastic achievement. So tell me, for those out there that are starting out or thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, getting out of the workforce, what's your advice?
Well, look, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, right? So I've been on the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. So I think my biggest advice is, tenacity, perseverance, make sure that what you're doing actually has legs and you can execute on. Right. But once you have that, you just got to keep going. You can't quit, and try and keep it even through those highs and lows, which is easier said than done. But, with a 20-year career being an entrepreneur, that's what I've learned. Just kind of ride with it, roll with the punches, and particularly in the cannabis industry where you get punched in the face practically every day.
It's like that Mike Tyson quote, right?
Exactly.
Everything's good until I punch you in the face.
Exactly. But as an entrepreneur, you have to take that hit and get right back up and keep going.
Let me ask you a third last question, and I'm sneaking one in here.
Sure.
As you think about 2020, what's ahead for Spiritleaf and for you guys?
Yeah, we're going to keep executing on our business plan, which has always been to provide a franchise model and to support local entrepreneurs who really want to be in the cannabis business and help them open stores and achieve their dream. So if we can do that, the rest falls into place. We have happy shareholders, we've got happy customers, and we've done exactly what we've said we were going to do. And we're just going to keep swinging and do the best we can.
Well, congratulations on all your achievement to date. Wonderful to see you again, and thanks so much for being on The Voice of Retail.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Mona, welcome to The Voice of Retail. How are you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
What a fun gala. We're here at the Lift & Co. Canadian Cannabis Awards Gala. You're up for a big award tonight.
I am, yes.
Best of luck to you. I'm getting you before you go on the stage. So,
yes. You don't know yet.
You're top Budtender. You're based in Calgary, right?
Calgary, Alberta, yeah.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your personal journey and who you are.
Most definitely. So I'm 25 years old. I've been in the cannabis industry for about 6 years. I worked in a head shop for 4 years prior to coming into Spiritleaf. So that's kind of where I've come from. Yeah. I started using cannabis medicinally about 4 or 5 years ago. I use it for IBS as well as PTSD. The head shop that I worked at ended up being robbed, and that was a very scary experience in the industry. So definitely something that kind of changed who I was, and definitely got me a lot more passionate about cannabis. Yeah. I also learning how to blow glass, so that's kind of my
that's exciting.
Yeah, my side passion.
And it's interesting. I talk to a lot of people in the industry who have these personal and professional journeys that tend to commingle, right?
Absolutely.
And you're kind of in that space as well.
Definitely.
So you're up for the Budtender Award. You're a professional. I wanted to ask you, talk about tradecraft. What makes a great Budtender, in your opinion?
Totally. There's a few definitely fundamental things that people need to know. You definitely have to be personal. You have to be approachable. Having a huge knowledge background is definitely really big, and definitely an understanding of cannabinoids and terpenes. Not necessarily strains per se, because once you kind of have that terpene profile, you're able to kind of delegate each strain a little bit differently. So I definitely think having the knowledge behind and being able to pass on that knowledge without flying over people's heads is a really important aspect as well.
That seems to me the tricky part, because I talk to retail associates, which are the heart-blood, the lifeblood of retail, right? Yes. So I love talking to associates, and I find that in the cannabis space, it's the most complex, because you get some regulations you got to work around.
Absolutely.
And then you also have to kind of impart knowledge, but figure out how much knowledge to impart, right? So is it just, hey, you understand strains, that's great, or you're talking about the entourage effect, that's even better.
For sure.
Like, how do you gauge that? Is it just talking to people and kind of gauge where
Definitely.
they're at?
Talking to people, opening them up, seeing kind of where they started in cannabis, whether they're brand new into it, whether they consider themselves an expert. Just kind of finding what people's backgrounds with cannabis are is a huge part. So you definitely got to do a lot of digging and a lot of just kind of discovering who your clients are.
So just being personable and kind of, step back and allow them in their space. And
Absolutely.
Kind of,
yeah.
cool.
And I mean, once you start asking people questions, they love to talk about themselves. So it's a really, really easy thing to do.
We all do. Thank God for the podcast, though.
Right?
If it wasn't
Absolutely.
for that, I'd be out of business. So to speak.
Totally.
Kind of 1 or 2 or 3 tips for someone listening who might want to get into the business. And then the second question, someone who is hiring people like yourself, what should they look for? So the first question is, if someone's considering being a budtender or getting into the business, what advice would you have for them?
Definitely.
Let's start with that.
So for people who are looking to get into the industry, a big thing is to know the prerequisites for getting hired at a place like that. So whether you need your cell safe, whether you need to complete a qualified cannabis worker status, which it is in Alberta. I'm not too sure for the rest of cannabis. I know everybody has their
every
own
province
version.
got its own thing. So
just making sure that you have those bases covered before you start applying. Another big thing that I think is use tools like Lift & Co. or like Leafly. Use those kind of websites that have a large database so you can kind of get more familiar with strains.
So arrive kind of educated yourself. And
Definitely.
Do you think that the people at the front lines need to be cannabis users at a certain degree or familiar with the product? Is it helpful? I mean,
definitely having the familiarity
right?
is huge. You don't necessarily need to consume cannabis as long as you have a good understanding of how it interacts with different people. And then I think another big up that can give you kind of an edge in the cannabis industry that not a lot of people have is knowing a lot of the accessories. So like if you walk into an interview with a good understanding of vaporizers, they're going to be a lot more likely to kind of kind of catch your vibe. So
right.
Yeah.
So because of course practically accessories are good money makers. Good to hit the budget for the store, right?
Absolutely.
All that good stuff. So let me turn the question around a little bit. So to the listeners who may be running or soon opening a cannabis store, what should they look for in a great budtender?
That's the thing that I think is a really awesome question, because good budtenders can come from absolutely anywhere. Like you can have car salespeople who make really great budtenders. You can have people who worked at Starbucks for years. I think definitely having a good retail background and having good customer service is what you should strive for. Not necessarily cannabis knowledge, because you can teach people things about cannabis, but you can't teach people like interpersonal skills.
Right.
So I think that's a huge one. Don't necessarily turn someone away because they're not familiar with cannabis, but give them that opportunity.
That's a good tip. That's a really good tip.
Absolutely.
So really, you're looking for people. Personal, they're curious, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
Curiosity.
Gotta have that spark of wonder.
Yeah, it's like, why are you in the store today? That kind of stuff, right?
Totally.
Well, listen, thanks so much for sitting down with the Voice of Retail. It's a real treat to meet you, and I wish you all the best. Welcome to the event.
I appreciate
listen, win, lose, or draw, to be nominated is
it's a huge
great.
Honor.
It's a great thing, so
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on the show. It was definitely a very wonderful experience.
All right, welcome to the Voice of Retail. We have some winners here at the table.
So I'm Mimi.
Hi, Mimi.
And beside me, I have Drum. So we're from Superette. We're the co-founders of Superette. It is a cannabis retail brand here in Canada.
Fantastic.
We are here to make cannabis retail comfortable, simple, and fun. We really want to raise the bar for cannabis retail. It's a company that's about a year old, and at that time, what we saw was a landscape that was filled with, luxury, tech-forward retail concepts, and a lot of legacy, more stoner head shop type. And we really wanted to be accessible and be fun.
Yeah, so I'm Drum and I'm the other co-founder of Superette. My background is in more traditional retail. So prior to this, we were at Tokyo Smoke from the acquisition of Canopy and pretty much the origins there. Before that, working with Herschel, the Vancouver backpack company, building out their retail strategy, and then worked quite closely with Chip Wilson through the Kidneys expansion in Canada and the US.
Oh, so deep experience in the retail space for sure.
So my background is in more traditional retail, but we just won Retailer of the Year, Startup of the Year, Budtender of the Year, Mimi won Entrepreneur Woman in Weed of the Year.
Man, you swept it.
Yeah, we did okay.
We did okay.
That's fantastic. How important are awards like this to the industry? Now you're as winners, it's important to all of us to have personal achievement, but to the industry, just awards in general, how important do you think it is?
So the cannabis industry has come a really long way, and this is just the beginning. And so a night where we can all celebrate the industry successes, I think, is really important. And everyone is in really good spirits. We have a lot ahead of us. 2020 is going to be a big year with Cannabis 2.0, and Superette will be playing alongside that.
Yeah, I mean, we're 1 year into legalization, so everyone's doing this for the first time. So it's really... It's a great opportunity for us all to band together and sort of see what went right, you know what I mean? In an industry where a lot's gone wrong, per se, it's really exciting to celebrate the successes.
So it's a time to look back and then a time to look forward because
100%.
The forward of this 2.0. But walk me through your retail concept. Like when you thought about, you touched on it briefly about your vision or around your mission, around what you thought of as a retailer. How do you articulate that in the stores itself? Like what's the look and the vibe you went for in the store, and then how do you articulate that?
So I'm actually going to take you a step back.
Sure.
So Superette, the word Superette, is actually another word for bodega or corner store. And we wanted to bring that, family-run business, really approachable neighborhood vibe to cannabis. So we started there. And so if you walk into a Superette store in Ottawa, think 1950s vibe, convenience store type, really nostalgic elements. We have a Pong game. We have some really cute diner booths.
Yeah.
And it's really about creating that vibe while providing an educational experience for the customers. So when you walk in, there's Express. There's a longer customer journey where you can consult with a Budtender and really explore a variety of products. What makes
a good Budtender? What do you look for? And what are those characteristics that differentiate? We know in retail how important frontline associates are, I think in cannabis retail they're even more important. They work within more constraints.
Well, first-time consumer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
So what makes for, what do you look for when you're hiring? And clearly you're hiring you've got...
education first and foremost, but approachability and how they can communicate to the end consumer. I think it's a hybrid of all three of those things.
Right.
You can be the most educated person in the world, but if you can't communicate your knowledge to the end consumer, it really doesn't matter. And for us, our whole concept is about being hyper accessible. In a market where everyone's skewed luxury, limited, exclusive, we're trying to take it back to how it should be, which is all-inclusive. And so our Budtender really needs to embody that as well.
And it's such a different variety of people who walk in the store, right? Different levels of awareness, but you're really kind of establishing yourself as a brand, approachable. Those are the kind of key characteristics you're thinking. Yeah. So looking ahead to 2020, looking ahead to 2.0, what are your plans for 2020? How do you approach retail in 2020 and 2020 and beyond?
More Superettes.
Yeah. More Superettes. So 2019 was really a foundational year to show the world our concept. But 2020 will be a year of growing the brand in Ontario, around Canada, and maybe beyond Canada as well.
That's exciting.
Retail products. This will be a brand that you will start seeing everywhere.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for spending time and sitting down. Congratulations again on your sweep. It was great to meet you, and thanks for sitting with the Voice of Retail.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Kelly, welcome to the Voice of Retail. How are you doing today?
Hi, Michael. I'm well, thank you.
So we're at a fabulous event, the Lift & Co's Awards,
Yes.
and you and I have just met here. We just started chatting, and you've got such an interesting backstory that connects to. You got a great voice.
Yeah.
I reckon I can hear that
Thanks,
across
Michael.
the room. And I wanted to learn a bit more about you, and then
Sure.
a little bit more. You're a retailer now.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your
Sure.
journey, and what you do, and tell me about your lounge. Tell me everything about that.
So I'm at the same table as you because we're in the media room, and so part of what I do is a podcast, Kelly's Green Lounge Radio, where I interview people in the cannabis community, and we talk about, it can be patients, it could be medical professionals, it could be recreational users, drug dealers, just anybody that will talk that has an affiliation with cannabis. And I've been doing that for a little while, and I have quite a big following on social media and the different, maybe not a lot of people, but it's very interactive, and there's
Sure.
a lot of people that communicate, like there's maybe 1,000 on each or whatever, and they're members of the lounge, and they have to ask to be members of the lounge.
But numbers aren't, what you and I would know is numbers don't mean anything. Engagement
I don't think
means
so, and that's
everything,
just
right?
it. Yeah, the
You could have
engagement
10,000
is-
people following.
Are you leaving? Bye. I'm waving to Linda because I love her. I love you, Linda.
I love you too, Kelly.
So
Engagement matters,
yes,
not numbers.
I think
right?
so, and I
Right.
think that's so because of that, because it became so popular and people kept following and being interactive with it. It really pushed me to know that we needed something in real life. So I have three facets to what I do. There's an educational piece where we do workshops and classes, and even before I had an in real life brick and mortar, I met places and did pop-ups and did yoga toke in a park or whatever with other cannabis enthusiasts. So that was that part. And then there's the lounge, which is sort of like a recreational place where we can come and we can play our vinyl records and we can have crafts and games. And there's live bands that come in and comedians, and we do stoner comedy nights. And then we have the marketplace, of course, where you can purchase anything that you would need to consume cannabis, along with like pot leaf leggings and earrings and fun things like that.
Right on.
Yeah.
So accessories, you don't yet have a license, so you're selling the
Right.
accessories that are in and around it. And
Correct.
it sounds like you're forming and continue to form this community around
That's
it, right?
certainly what it is. And the wonderful thing about it is that, like, I just went online and I said, I need some help to be able to pay the bills to be able to do this. And that's the truth. We would like to be more accessible, so we're working at getting a wheelchair ramp. I would like to buy microscopes for the workshops. And the day-to-day operations cost money, right?
Yep.
Rent, whatever.
Yep.
And so what I've done is we're doing fundraisers for it. And the community came together. Big people in the cannabis community donated stuff to be auctioned off. So that's helping. We have a little wishing well where people throw coins when they come in. So when you say community,
So
it
clever,
really is a community. I am just sort of the person that works there. It's taken on a life of its own. We have local artists donating work. It's just, we do compassionate care for people that maybe couldn't afford to get their cannabis. Maybe they've been coming off opiates and they need cannabis to help them come off of that. And we get lots of stuff donated to us as far as like the dried flower. We do nug swaps where people come in and they maybe have their harvest that they have and they'll get some edibles from somebody like that, and it's all completely legal to be able to trade your cannabis and give cannabis away. So we do everything on the up and up, and it seems to be really working well.
Well, tell me about, when we speak to people in the cannabis industry, it's not uncommon for personal and professional journeys to merge. Some people started down the cannabis road because they needed it to treat disease. They found it a very effective method.
Sure.
Some people just have been lifelong
Of course.
users or enjoyers of the product.
Yep.
Does that describe you? Like, where do these
So,
personal and professional
yeah.
kind of intersect for you?
I'm a hippie, like through and through, and even my logo is a hippie. And so I've always had cannabis in my life. It was never really illegal to me. I was somebody that I dated the musicians and I partied with the musicians. I was a radio announcer, but then I became, worked in the music industry as an agent and promoter for house music DJs. I've traveled to festivals, and I've just always been that person that connected to that lifestyle. I was, when everybody would say, you bring a bottle of wine, it was popcorn that was infused, or brownies, or just some doobies or something like that. So weed was always just something to me. And then I never realized the therapeutic benefits until I realized I had such severe anxiety that I'm on stage introducing bands and I'm shaking. And then I realized that cannabis can help me with that. And so I found it, and I was able to. I have also really bad insomnia, so it was able to sort of set me off. And then I started learning, and I started taking university courses, and I've taken the Cancel and the Cancel Expert, Lift and Co. And formed this sort of thing. But then I was a childcare provider for 10 years, a supervisor for the YMCA, and I became this sort of mom figure and this teacher. And people, when legalization was happening, they were coming to me because there was nowhere else to go. And I live in a rural community where cannabis isn't anywhere. So I was sort of that person that knew about it or could find out a way to it. And I also have a very sick mom, and I wanted to help heal her. Unfortunately, she still has the stigma from prohibition, and she won't allow cannabis to heal her. But my thought was, if I can't heal my mom, I'll heal somebody else's mom. And I am, every day. And so I left my corporate job, and I put all my savings in my business, and there I am.
Well, such an entrepreneur, and such a giving person. I mean, you're really charismatic and bringing people together.
That's just really what I want to do.
It's really great.
I'm not here to get rich.
So tell me where, for people who are listening, where can they learn more or find your store?
It's Kelly's Green Lounge. We're on Facebook and Instagram, or you can email me if you want to ask me any questions. kellysgreenlounge.ca, info@.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And physically, where do you exist?
We're in Orono, Ontario. 5323 Main Street in Orono. It's just a tiny little place.
Yeah.
It's got green walls and Bob Marley on the wall.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for sitting down. And it was great to meet you tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting down with the Voice of Retail.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to Darren, Mona, Mimi, Drummond, and Kelly for being my guests on this special episode sponsored by Environics Analytics Cannabis Practice. 2020 is going to be an important year in the retail cannabis space as Cannabis 2.0 products hit the shelves across the country, and finally Ontario has opened up their market to retail cannabis stores. I'll continue to cover this industry and bring thought leaders on the podcast to share insights, best practices, and stories on the front lines of retail. That's a wrap on this special edition of The Voice of Retail. If you like this podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Please rate and review, and be sure to recommend to a friend or colleague in the retail cannabis industry, as well as the retail industry. I'm Michael LeBlanc, founder and president of M.E. LeBlanc Company, Inc. You can learn more about me on www.meleblanc.co or, of course, on LinkedIn. Until next time, have a great week.